Okay, so does anybody right off the bat have any part of the book that stuck out to them that they want to bring up? Seema, you have a big, huge smile on your face, and it makes
No, I just, I listened to both the replays, right? Because I wasn't able to be at the last two calls, and it was uh very fascinating to listen to everybody's insights. And it was actually very good, I think, that I wasn't on the last two calls because, you growing up with this, right? Having the conversation of what the Gita is and all this stuff when you're growing up, you have certain ideas, right? So I think it was really good to just be forced to sit back and listen to the last two calls because I could not say anything about what I thought, which was then gave me the chance to just really listen and to hear other people's ideas. And that was eye-opening. So I actually really appreciated that. And was really fascinated by it. So yeah, I think it was just, and I listened to them just this weekend. And one was just yesterday on the flight back. So it's really still just resonating in my mind. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens today. It's interesting.
Okay, here comes Jessica. Let me let her in. Hold on. Yeah, it is really interesting. I'm finding it interesting just like observing my own thoughts and seeing how I think that the contrast between things that are literal and figurative in this book are potentially the most confusing for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding it. Hi, Jessica. So we're all just jumping in any part of the book or any of the study sessions that you've been watching that you find interesting that you want to chime in, just raise your hand and chime in. Yeah, so Rose was asking a few minutes ago, like where everybody was. And I think that some people are wanting to read slower and some people are wanting to read faster. And so now my guess is that everybody's like near the same place, but not necessarily in the same place. I just finished chapter 6. So you too, Katie, where is everybody at? I'm curious. Seema.
I'm like, I think in the middle of chapter 6, because I kind of actually what happened was when I was listening to the call yesterday, and then Katie mentioned not the glossary, but the notes. So I'm reading it on my phone, okay, on my Kindle. And so when I flip to the notes, then it wouldn't flip back to like the last page. I was like, oh my God, I'm totally lost now. So somewhere in the 6th chapter, I kind of lost myself there. So I think that's kind of where I was.
Okay, so we're
Yoga, meditation. That's I was somewhere in there.
yeah. What about you, Jessica? Where are you?
So I wanted to confirm the actual version because in the version that I have, I'm on chapter 4 right now. Because I just found out about this book. Okay, about this book club. Amazing. Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that copy then.
So it might be a little confusing, huh, if we're reading different versions.
No worries. Yes, I've been listening to the recordings though, and just listening in on the conversation's been really just enlightening. And I think even that statement you just made, about okay, within the Bhagavad Gita, what's being taken literally, what's not, and how that can be a little confusing. It's resonating. It is definitely resonating, and I think it's just what we are doing here, trying to digest it within a group setting. It feels so right. So I'm just excited. I'm excited to be here.
Nice. We're happy to have you. And I see Hani joined us. What's up, girl?
Hey, sorry I'm a little late. I was having an issue with the link. It wasn't letting me open it up. But anyway,
I'm glad you're
I'm
here.
here.
So we're just saying how we're all just going to kind of pop in and talk about like how we ended our last session. Like people can be wherever they need to be on this journey, however, and we'll just all kind of talk about it.
Okay.
Katie, how about you? You usually have some fun things to talk about.
Well, if you want me to be completely honest, I went back and started reading it again and started taking notes. So I actually have questions written down all the way from chapter 2 to chapter 6.
Let's talk about it. Let's do it.
Um, like I know, Connie, where have you gotten your book yet? Because I know you said last time you didn't have your book.
Yeah,
So
I
where
have
is
it now.
that with your
I have
reading?
it now. But I do have a question because I actually got 2 books. I didn't even realize I had ordered 2, but they're different. And I wrote down a bunch of pages from our last visit, and then I tried to go through and align the pages with the discussion that I know they were all about, and it wasn't matching. And so I'm not really sure what versions I have, but I couldn't find, like, for example, Shauna was talking about topics on pages 124 and 125 last week. And in both of my books, I was looking and it wasn't there. So I don't know. I'm hoping that I have the right resources.
Yeah, is this the one that you have? Can you,
So I have this.
okay, so that's not it.
Yeah.
So
And then
instead of
I have
instead of
and then I have
looking at
this right here.
Oh yeah.
so
It's
instead of looking at pages, look for chapter and verse and see if that
Yeah.
helps.
And that's what
And that should
yes,
more or
yes.
less match up.
Okay. I don't think that these are not going to serve me well, but I just realized I don't think I have the same copies that you guys have. But
yeah, in the beginning we had kind of like what happened is there were so many versions, I didn't know which one to choose. So
Mhm.
then I asked like a supervisor, like, do you know which one Jay Shetty read? And then one of the students chimed in and said in his book, Think Like a Monk, he talks about this version by this author. So we went with this version specifically based off of what he had read. Just
okay.
because
That's
there's so
good to
many,
know.
so many to choose from. It's like, who knows where to go? And oh my gosh, I was reading all the reviews of all the different versions, and you'll have like so many people that love it and think it's great. And then there'll be all these people that are like, oh, it's sexist and it's outdated and the author thinks we're stupid. I'm like, okay, I don't know which one to read. So that's how we
Well, whatever. I mean, I might go. I mean, it's not like they're that much money. I might just go ahead and collect another one and get the same one that you guys have. So. Anyway, Caitlin, did you have a question for me?
No, I was just trying to see where you were at in the book because it'll be interesting. Like I said, I have questions written down from chapter 2 all the way up to chapter 6. So I was just wondering if you'd had a chance to read yet or not.
I have. I didn't have as much time as I was hoping, but I am in like the very tail end of chapter 3, I think.
Cool.
But the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about this is that I feel like it's easy to follow, even if people bring up stuff that I haven't covered yet. I feel like we can still find ways to discuss. So
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So, Shauna, do you want me to go ahead and ask a question?
yeah,
One of my okay.
totally curious.
So, I wrote down a question and I'm gonna read a verse off of page 60, no, page 90. So it's page 90, verse 16.
and what chapter is that?
That's chapter 2 in my book, Self-Realization.
Okay.
So the verse on that page says, the impermanent has no reality. Reality lies in the eternal. Then, if you skip to verse 68, for those of you with this copy, it's page 97. Then it says, use all your power to free the senses from attachment and aversion alike and live in the full wisdom of the self. Such a sage awakes to light in the night of all creatures. That which the world calls day is the night of ignorance to the wise. So my question that I wrote down, because I actually highlighted that last sentence of that which the world calls day is the night of ignorance to the wise. So my question as I was sitting here reading this is, if this is telling us that our everyday reality and our everyday experience isn't the true reality, what is the true reality? What are we trying to wake up to? Like, I just wanted to see what everybody was kind of feeling with that. Because in my head, like, literally what I have written down is, am I just a character in a video game? And I'm like living out this simulation, you know? I just kind of wanted to see what everybody else thought of that.
I'll chime in since I don't see any hands up. I mean, obviously, each one of us has our own idea of, what's on the other side of this reality. I think they talk a lot about reincarnation, right? So in this realm, reincarnation is a theory, right? It's not proven, although I have read some books and some testimonies of children that come back into this world and they know things about past lives. And then you can look it up and there'll be newspaper articles that validate it. But I don't know that it's been proven, And I think that that this is like big school. Like if we're all a part of God, so this is just what's going on for me. If we are all little pieces of God, just like, for instance, like drops in an ocean, right? So we are the ocean, but we are also drops of the ocean. I picture us being like that, like God is the ocean and we're little drops of God. And we're down here experiencing life from all these different perspectives because each one of us has our own perspective. And I think that is, I don't know, like enhancing like God in a way. So I think we're all down here enhancing God. And so to me, this is school. This is not where we come from. This is not where we end up. And I think that's what he means. But again, that's just my own personal beliefs. Does anybody else want to share theirs?
So I like what you said there about the ocean, because that's another part of my question is like, the thing that Krishna keeps coming back to is you attain, once you attain, the knowledge of the Atman and Brahman and whatever, then you can stop reincarnating and you become one with God. So like when you were saying the ocean metaphor, that was kind of how it was hitting me, is like you are here being this little drop, and until you learn the lessons and learn how to be one with God, you won't be a part of the ocean yet. I don't know. What do you have to say, honey?
I don't know how relevant this might be to all of you, but I've been thinking a lot like the last couple days, and specifically like and profoundly for a lot of my afternoon yesterday. I was really munching on this connection that I was making in a new way. And it's about our soul and our body. And what I have really like profoundly realized, for me anyway, is that our soul is that part of us which is limitless, which is almost immortal, I guess. And yet, in the ways in which it is so profound and wise and like the better half of ourselves, and so to speak, and the ways that I've always kind of elevated my connection to my soul, I'm realizing now just how much power lies within the humanness that we all have. And that indeed, if our soul was ever so powerful and ever so able to advance and to grow and to learn, then therefore it would not need our body. And so, because what I'm realizing more and more in a different way, that our body is an essential part, crucial part for our soul to be able to learn and grow and become more. Um, just how I've realized just how powerful we as individuals are in that knowledge. And so I guess like here in this earthly state that we're in, it is our duty and our, connection to that duty that brings us to that place of higher self and like enlightenment and advancement. But we can't do it without the body and the soul, I guess. And they're both so crucial. But yeah, I personally have always kind of like lessened the body and kind of demoted it in status and elevated the status of spirit or soul to a place of almost like unreachable, and just grateful I know it's there and it's with me, but it's like ever so advanced. And now I realize like just how much dependence our soul has on our body, and that is our duty to position ourselves in such a way of discipline so that as to be able to command our soul and direct our soul, because our soul is in divine order, not human order. And so our soul doesn't necessarily understand the ways in which it needs to comply or behave. And so if we don't continue and be ever so aware of our soul, then it can get lost and kind of like flitter away without us really knowing the direction that it's going. Am I talking in circles, or do people understand what I'm trying to say?
I love what you just said. Like, I don't think it's something I didn't know, but somehow the way you said it just brought me closer to that understanding. And
Yeah.
I resonate with the experience of putting my body like on a lower pedestal. Like, oh, well, the soul is up here and body's here. But what a mind-blowing thing to realize, like, yeah, but your body is here so that your soul can continue to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it needs this experience to get wherever it's trying to go.
Yeah.
They're
And
working
so
together.
how crucial it is for us to like, it gives me chills, like the crucial kind of understanding and respect that I've come to in just like the last 24 hours or so of realizing just the magnitude of importance that our humanness plays in the role of advancement of soul.
Is anybody else finding it interesting that we're right now discussing the importance of how the soul and the body work together, but the book talks all about detachment? And like, I feel like the body represents attachment, like more than anything else in our life. Like, are we more attached to anything else?
I mean, I think I would say in kind of what Honey said is I would actually say it reverse, right? So I would actually think that we have to kind of tame or control right, detach from the humanness or the body so that the soul is allowed to do what it needs to do. Whereas right now, what happens is this gets in the way and this gets in the way and this gets in the way. And then what the soul kind of had intended or what it's trying to do in working its, karma is not allowed to happen. And that's where I think when we talk about detachment and we talk about being able to like meditate and hear that, right? Hear what that soul is saying is what happens. So I would actually almost say it in the reverse, if that makes sense.
Reverse. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
It's funny when you said, tell me your name.
Seema.
Seema, okay.
Is it on
Seema,
there?
I love that because it threads into another thought that I was had because I have so many things. I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I even make sense of all this? And I've been writing stuff down, but I'm still combing through all of it. It's like coming to me faster than I can like keep up with it. But
Mhm.
another thing that ties into what you're saying that I realized is that our the our purpose, at least for what I understand, is to yes, become ever so aware of that detachment to a place that it doesn't occur to us or like it's so easy for us to dismiss the human desire and kind of defer to the better or like position like that higher position of the soul, letting the soul be the compass, letting the soul be the anchor, yet keeping yourself like body and soul in check so as to like be aware of that journey or that kind of the traveling that we do together in this life instead of the body trying to catch up to the soul or the soul kind of wondering like when the body's gonna like join. I guess I'm trying to make sense of it still, so it might not sound very
I
put
think
together.
I think we're picking up what you're putting down. I'm curious what your thoughts are, Jess.
There we go. Sometimes that unmute button just does not want to come undone. So my thoughts are around just the detachment piece and kind of like the verbiage that I really heard around that specific word was like control and like regulation, things of that nature. And just for me personally, kind of what's resonating a little bit more is just looking at detachment in terms of action. And what I mean by that is looking at our actions and making sure that they're in alignment for the greatest good of our body and our mind. And that creating a space for detachment instead of necessarily being attached to like the control piece of it or like the regulation piece, but just when once again that mind and body can be in alignment with the action being for the greatest good, that being a detachment from like the end results, of that specific action.
Find it really interesting that the book talks a lot about detaching from the results of our actions. Have you guys been putting any thought into that?
Yeah.
Like, that's hard. I don't know if I don't think I have that down. I don't think I have that down right now in this moment. Like, I don't think going to school, like everything for me is attached to an outcome. So how do we even begin to start detaching from the outcomes that we want? That's something to think about. Go ahead, Katie.
Was Allie done?
You mean
I saw-
Jessica?
No,
I'm
Allie had her hand up first,
Oh,
actually.
Ollie, I don't see any hand up except for Caitlin.
Oh, that's so
Any-
bizarre. You're like blinded to her or
It's
him.
weird. But
I
she can
know.
go because she was up before me.
Yeah,
I,
please. I don't
I
see Ollie for some reason. I don't know why. It's bizarre.
Well,
Oh. Well, no, it's not because of her camera's off. Because normally when a camera's off, it'll show the little thing and it will just say camera off.
is it Allie or Ali?
Ali.
Ollie.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's have her speak or him. I don't even know.
It's
Sorry.
a her. It's a her. Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Seema had said earlier. I think I don't know, my statement is more like a question. My takeaway, just going back to chapter 2, and then currently right now I am on chapter 6. The part where they're comparing the mind to a steady flame, and the untrained mind is restless, and that whole thing. So for me, my takeaway, and then to piggyback off of what Seema was saying, for me, it comes down to self-discipline, self-mastery, as far as being able to disconnect. I'm looking at the whole in the beginning, the first 3 chapters when they went into the whole story of being in war, more being looking at it more in more as a metaphor, war being a metaphor, and the whole forces of light versus forces of darkness and that whole thing, and just looking into my deeper self. So that's self-discipline, self-mastery. And then where I'm at in chapter 6 is just me looking into my deeper self for detachment.
Yeah, it's going to take practice ultimately, right? Like, even if we get the concept, even if we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do to get there, sort of like building a house, like, here's all the materials. Now you just have to build it, you know?
Mhm.
It's just, I think it's just a matter of time and practice. Thanks for sharing that, Ollie. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, so Shauna, actually what you were saying beforehand of like, if I'm not supposed to act with attachments to things, you kind of sparked a thought in my head, and it's actually one of the questions I have written down. I have a verse written down. It's page 96, verse 64. Let me see. Yeah, okay. So it says, but when you move amidst the world of sense, free from attachment and aversion alike, there comes the peace in which all sorrows end, and you live in the wisdom of the self. So my question as I was reading that I wrote down was, then what does living look like? If you're living without the attachment and without aversion, what are you doing? You know?
I mean, that's like those people that we see, right? That like wear their clothing's a little different than ours, right? They kind of wear like, I don't know what you would call them, but more humble clothing. And they're usually like super wise and they have a bunch of followers and right. Like, I feel like they're just ready. They're just passing time. Like they're seniors, it's like the last week of their senior year. Like they're going to reincarnate back into God when they pass away. Like they're there. But we just look a little bit more attached and messy because we're freshmen. If you know what's going on.
I keep sitting here reading this and I'm like, like I'm thinking of you, Seema, that's like grown up with this, and I'm sitting here reading this like I am such a Westerner. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't know.
Well, you're not alone.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I mean, even my mom, who's like, read this multiple times, even there's like, I think you guys talked about it last time, right? Like there's a knowing, right? There's a knowing in reading this and an somewhat understanding, but then in practice, like what does this actually look like aside from me being a sage on the top of a mountain, completely detached from everything and everyone? And how is that, relevant? But then I think, if you look at what Jay is doing, right? It is this, right? Like Arjuna is a coachee, Krishna is the coach. This is the modern day version of trying to serve others as much as possible. And in that service, one will find a different type of self-realization that ultimately, maybe not in this life, but in future lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation, will bring you to that. So we're like maybe here and maybe now, because we're like even acknowledging this, maybe we're here, but like we gotta get way over there. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds right. What about you, Hani? And then your next, Rose.
I was thinking about the whole thread of thought that you brought up, Shauna, about not being attached to an outcome. And it brings to light something that I feel like for me, because I'm such a visual, has helped me so much, which is aligned with staying present, staying in the moment, keeping yourself aware and of where you are. And if you're backwards or too far forwards, just reel it back or bring it back, whatever. And in everyday interactions with people and all the things that are going on in front of us, around us, that constant connection to, okay, just stay out of your own way, stay out of your own way. Just don't have expectation, just breathe in, breathe out, just be, and stay aware. And I always think about myself as kind of myself in front of me. So it's like, here I am, and then here you are across from me, and then here I am again in front of me. And if I am in my own way, only focused on what I want, what I need, what I'm expecting, what I'm trying to achieve, and my end goal kind of always kind of anchoring and motivating me, then I fail with this kind of perspective. I fail to see you and the greater good and all the dimension of what this smorgasbord of learning and opportunity and growth really has to offer me, because I have limited myself with this absolute, I know best, I'm in control, I'm doing me, and me is going to show me, basically. And it completely derails my ability to grow and to optimally tap into all things that can be a part of my path and my learning experience in each present moment. And so I think in regards to attaching or becoming detached from an outcome, it lines up really well with what you were saying, Seema, about the coach and the coachee position, where what we're learning in school and being reminded of all the time is that, there is a big goal, but then there's all the small bites and the small goals that are much more important and essential to focus on one of those at a time. And being ever so aware that even though that end goal, that big goal is the aim, that the focus and the true growth happens in our ability to munch on one bite at a time, and then being aware and open to change and pivots that might occur along that path towards that goal. So that, we've got a mountain and there's all sorts of faces to that mountain, and there's switchbacks and kind of like other trails. And so we might think that this one particular trail with all these particular switchbacks is the best and most ideal for us to get to that big goal. And then on that trail, realizing, oh my gosh, look over here. I realize now that there's something here that better serves my path in an effort to get there. And staying aware, present, and open to the guidance and to that higher level of wisdom and ability to attain that in the simplicity of staying present and staying open. So that's where I was with that.
Yeah, I can resonate with a lot of that, especially this part.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so familiar. Hey, Rose, what were you gonna say?
I too was looking at chapter 6 today more so, and the reason I put what I put in the chat today is I by accident came across this Peter Boland, and I believe he's some kind of a university professor who studies Asian culture, Asian history, Asian thought and psychology and that sort of thing. And he is using this book, and he goes through it chapter by chapter, so to speak. And the way I guess he interprets it or he understands it makes sense to me when I go back and I read something. So for instance, at the very end of chapter 6, I think it's the last part, the very last part of it in the section 46 and 47, he says, meditation is superior to serve asceticism and the path of knowledge. It is also superior to selfless service. May you attain the goal of meditation. Even among those who meditate, that man or woman who worships me with perfect faith, completely absorbed in me, is the most firmly established in yoga. And I thought, okay, meditation. So that takes me back to Seema, was it, who said being on top of the mountain and detached from everything. And how can you be on top of a mountain, detached from everything, and serving others? I don't understand. So if you're going to detach in such a way, and you're, well, let me put it this way. I've thought about the life of a monk and how they are, they're cloistered, and they don't really interact a lot outside of where they are. And they're praying for us, and they're studying us, and they want the best for us. But how is that serving us in humanity and doing for others? You're praying for me, you're thinking of me, and yes, I believe in the power of prayer. But if you're not out there working with people and serving those people and trying to make them the best they can be, then why are we so detached from everything? But what I thought was interesting today, when I only listened to a couple excerpts from this Peter Bowl, and he said, because one of the questions came up was, why is it in this chapter and this verse, it's said this way? But then it sounds like 2 chapters later, he's saying just the opposite. And Bolin says that you should look at this Gita as a guide for everybody, because we don't all think the same. We don't all believe the same. We don't learn the same way. So therefore, he's giving you various examples of how to live your life. And if this one doesn't work for you, then maybe you're on this path. Like you were talking about which path to go down and what you're finding. And I just thought, you know what, that makes sense, because there have been times when we said the very first time that we met, and we said, well, he said this over here, but now he's saying this over here. That doesn't make any sense. So I started thinking about these verses a little more, thinking, okay, I understand that one. That one makes sense to me. I get that one. And then I go on to something else, and I'm thinking, how am I supposed to do that? What does that mean? Right? Caitlin, she's shaking her head. Yes. Another one was, and I'm with Caitlin. I am such a Westerner. I promise. Christianity all the way. And in chapter 6, verse 30, he says, I am ever, and this is Krishna talking, I am ever present to those who have realized me in every creature, seeing all life as my manifestation. They are never separated from me. They worship me in the hearts of all, and all their actions proceed from me. Wherever they may live, they abide in me. And this Westerner is saying, okay, that's God, that's Jesus and God talking about what their world is and what their world represents, and to do things in their name and not just because of greed or whatever from us. When a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. Peter Bolin says that's the epitome of compassion and illumination. So, and I'm thinking spiritual union. Okay, what exactly does that mean? But when I heard this guy talking about what that verse meant or means to him, I thought, that's right, compassion. So how can I be sitting up on top of a mountain in my own zone, in my own world, trying to connect with my God, but I'm not helping the people down at the bottom of the mountain? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ollie, give me just one moment, and then Jess, you're next. But I just wanted to respond to you, Rose. It's kind of like what you just said earlier, which is it's a guide for people, and people are very different. And so they're going to read into it differently. And
right.
I'm not sure that both can't exist. You know, I'm not sure that the monk who's just going into like, I want to get as close as I can to Brahman with my
Mhm.
thoughts and my focused attention. We don't know how that's serving God's will in the greater story or goal that we don't know about. Just
Right.
as coming down here like Jay Shetty and sharing all of this wisdom and bringing all these people together is also helping. Like we just don't know what the bigger plan is, but it could
Right.
all be helping and all be true. So thank
And
you.
that's why I said, I just, I would wonder about some of these people. And, even like in the Catholic faith and the Christian faith, and when you have nuns and priests and monks and deacons and who all sequester themselves and try to reach that inner experience. It just, why do you cloister yourself off? Why do you lock yourself off from the rest of the world? Why do you just go into yourself? What is that serving you? And how is that serving those around you? I
I think
told
that's
you, I'm not a philosophical thinker here, but those were the thoughts that kind of hit me.
I think that's because that's what is like, that's the conversation you're having with you, about what you want to do here with
Mhm.
this body and this soul. So I would definitely pay a lot of attention to that and help that guide you toward your purpose for sure. I think a lot of people can resonate with you on that.
Well, and to go back to what Hanny was saying about body and soul, and I don't know exactly where, but doesn't it say in the Bible that your body is your temple? You need to take care of it because it's my home too. And if you don't take care of your body, then things are not going to work out accordingly. They're not going to, you have to take care of your body because otherwise your soul has no place to exist. Your soul, see, in my mind, I don't know if I believe in reincarnation, but I do believe that the body goes into the ground, back into the dirt, and the soul finds another life in heaven, in whatever that place is that they're going to, the soul is sent to. I don't know if I believe in the reincarnation theory because that's not what I was taught. And so that's one of the reasons I joined this book club, because I thought I want to, hear another version of the stories and see what's going on. But there's a lot of comparison. If you're a Christian and you read through this, so much of this is very similar to what we've been taught too. It's not like we're all so different across the world. I mean, all religions have a God. They all want to serve their God. They all want to do what's best for those around them, right? So it's just another point of view is the way I look at it.
Totally. Thank you for all of that. And I love that you're studying this and getting outside of your box. Katie, I know you want to respond to Rose, but I'm feeling anxious about how long Ali's been having to wait. So can we let her take the floor? Okay, go ahead, Ali.
Thank you, Shauna. Actually, I appreciate Rose's thoughts. Very powerful. It actually made me forget a little bit of what I originally was going to say because I'm actually meditating on Rose's thoughts and her questions. But I just wanted to quickly just kind of go back to what Hanny was saying, and it kind of she kind of beat me to it, and I just want to make sure it's if what she was saying aligned with what I was thinking. So I'm sorry, I had notes and then I started getting into listening to Rose for 1 second.
I know it's hard. It's hard to keep up when all of us are chiming.
Yeah, it's all stuff. But I was thinking, Hanny, so changing your perspective, letting go of what we don't have control over, therefore detaching, or it leads to detachment or can, so we're able to be in the present. Is that pretty much, does that sum up what you were saying? I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
we
just being aware of where we are. Like, are we behind? Are we in the past? Are we in the future? Or are we aware and present? And if that is true, then in that present moment, are we maintaining that openness, that kind of mindset of the greatest will is to have no will, and how we focus that power? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ollie. And just for the record, I know it's a little confusing, but it is Hani.
Hani.
Hani?
Thank you, honey.
You know,
Okay.
I called her Hanny too. I even noticed in the last recording after you explained it to me, I still called you Hanny. So
It's okay. It's a visual. It's very autopilot. You just look at it and you want to pronounce it the way it phonetically looks like it's supposed to. That's okay.
totally.
Same, I get Ali all the time, but I mean, actually it's Ali or Ali, but I go by Ali.
Yeah. I did the same thing with you originally too. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ollie. Jess, you were next in line, and then Katie and Rose, are you still waiting to chime in, or is that okay? All right, Jess, go ahead.
So my thoughts come back to the the monks just like meditating up on that mountain, and then really what is that practical application of all the downloads, right, that they're receiving look like. And kind of my thoughts are around the work that Thich Nhat Hanh has done, specifically. So he is, you know, a Zen master from Vietnam, has several just villages that he helped found. And Plum Village specifically in France right now, they're working on this course called Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet, where they're really looking at exactly that. We don't need to hold on to these learnings that we have, but rather broadcast them, kind of like what Jay is doing, and really find a way to make them more accessible, and that, you know, everyone can understand them. So I just found it very unique that their approach to this has been one, like launching that course, but they're doing it all virtually. So they have these wonderfully created modules with their different teachers, and they are just going, you know, line by line on understanding, okay, what does your relationship with the earth look like? What does a Zen or Buddhist train of thought look like when it comes to relating to your mind and body and the earth? And then how can we look at some of the fear and anxiety that we're experiencing during these times, given everything that we're being, you know, that's in our lived experience right now? How can we really use some of these tools that we've learned to calm that mind and body and spirit? And I just really find it so unique that all of these teachings, they're becoming more approachable. Even the resources, you know, that we have access to now that are really breaking this down bit by bit, I think are working to, you know, break down that connection between these higher thought teachings, you know, that we're not always privy to make them more accessible. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank God they're making it accessible, because we wouldn't all be together right now if they weren't.
Mhm.
Katie, thanks for being so patient.
No problem. Yeah, so my thoughts were going back to Rose and what she was talking about with, like, if you're a monk up on the mountain, how are you serving anyone? And I definitely get where she's coming from, but the way that my head answered it was, if you attain the knowledge, then you can take the knowledge to the masses, just like Jessica just said, of then you can broadcast it. Like, I mean, just like Jay, like, you know, Jay went, he did his monk thing, now he's back. Now we're having a book club meeting about Gita and, you know, discussing all these topics. So it's like, yes, you have to, I think like the monk thing is you get so lost in your mind and your body that like sometimes it's easier to isolate while you do the work, but then once you gain the knowledge, then you can come back and serve others, you know, because I guess to me you have to serve yourself before you can know how to serve others. So that was just my thoughts.
100%. Absolutely. Seema, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to piggyback on, you know, what Katie and Ali was saying, is that in response to Rose, all of what they just said, I 100% agree with. And I think the other thing that's really important is when we look at people like that, right? We look up to them, right? They provide a role model for us. They provide something that we attain to be. And I think that, again, based on the idea of if you believe in reincarnation, right? Where they might be on like life 955 of 1,000, right? Whereas you and me, Rose, we're at 50, like we're here where they're there. So they've already done what we're doing right now, if that makes sense, right? Like maybe in previous lives. That's kind of like the idea that comes to my mind, is that, we're just not there yet, right? And when they get to that point, they're able to devote their time and energy and mind to the word of God, right? In whatever that looks like for them. And I think, when I read kind of like some of the other like stories from India, these yogis or sages, right, who were sitting up on a mountaintop, would ever so often come down, or people would go up to them, right? And then they would, they've been sitting there and they've been meditating. And so they're gaining other wisdom that we all gain, right? When we sit in silence, we come to know things that we don't otherwise realize or recognize or hear. And I think that's where, like, I'm finding it so fascinating, right? That I'm listening to all of this and listening to Jay and all of his teachings. And it's really like he's taken it and put it in this modern day version, right? So when he's saying, find your purpose, right? That's like Krishna saying to Arjun, what is your purpose? In this moment, your purpose is to be a warrior. That is your job. That is your duty. That is your dharma. That is your fill in the blanks, right? And so in this moment, in this life, Arjun was brought to be a warrior. And so while he's questioning this now, Krishna is saying, this is your job. Like, this is your purpose. This is what you're here to do. So when Jay's talking about all those things of find your purpose, why are you here? What is it that you are innately good at, right? What is it that innately in you is what's ringing true, right? And so that's where I think all of like the meditation and the detachment and all of the things that we're talking about come into play, because you only hear it when that happens, right? If I keep attaching myself to the outcome of something, that I went to school, I became a doctor, I should be a doctor, I'm a doctor, and like I just keep holding on to that, maybe what my true calling was never reached because I didn't listen to what was really inside of me. So that's, I think, kind of like what speaks to me when I'm like listening to, all of this and when I'm reading through these chapters.
When you were talking about he's supposed to be a warrior right now, all I could think about was like, well, yeah, but if he detaches from the outcome of being a warrior, then what is he?
So I think when the word detachment comes into place, I think that it's deigned to not necessarily when it refers to what your duty is. And it talks about this later on, and I don't think we've come to that part where it talks about like this, do your duty, right? Do what you were ordained to do. So for him in this case, it's this, it's that, but don't be attached to the outcome of like, you have people on the other side that are going to get harmed, right? That because your duty as a warrior is to serve and protect righteousness, right? In this moment of right and wrong or good and evil, that is your job. And so you have to detach from the idea of what the outcome will be. Yes. And you also, and what's going to happen to the people on the other side that are your family members. and just do what your duty is.
Interesting. Hani, thank you, Seema.
I was just to tag on to what you were just saying, Seema. The whole thought about okay, I have to gather myself a minute. Okay. So when you're talking about kind of in a sense like being an instrument or being like taking directives, not because like we're just here to toe the line and be a little soldier marching to the beat of the higher power, the divine, and to add a little, autonomy and individualism to that. I think that one of the things that I realized purpose in life is all about is to be ever so aware of the guidance that we're getting, kind of like what you're saying about the warrior and directives to be a warrior and whatever it takes to, serve that higher duty or higher call. Is that, isn't it true that it's more true than not, or I think it is true that the more weird or strange or nonsensical inspiration that the inspiration is that comes to us, the more potent and wise to follow that direction is. Does that make sense? So it's like if we're finding these moments of clarity with high level intuition that we should direct our path or steer our path in this moment this way or that way, or to show up in a certain form, and every part about the human experience and the mind is saying that's messed up, like that is so weird, or that's awkward, or that's way too embarrassing, or not doing that. I'm not putting myself out there in that kind of vulnerable kind of way. Yet more and more and more, I'm appreciating and realizing, understanding that that's what we're supposed to be doing, is kind of setting ourselves apart in the world because we've decided that we want to be in this position of advancement. We want to be this present and this aware, and our desires are to achieve more and more enlightenment. And so in order to do that, these directives are coming to us, and the more we respond to that which doesn't make sense to the world, the faster those directives are continuing to come to us. And it's our ability to discipline ourselves enough and find that inner sense of self-respect and confidence and kind of foundational connection to channel that that ability that we have is directly connected to how enlightened we become. Again, I'm processing verbally, so if anyone wants to add to that, or
No, I love that. I think that's like exactly it, right? I mean, if someone had said, when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, like, oh, there will be this thing and you will flip a switch and a light will turn on. Everybody thought he was crazy, right? Yeah. Albert Einstein, everybody thought he was crazy, but that's where great ideas start, right? Is that the outrageous or the unbelievable becomes believable, right? Who would have thought we'd be sitting here looking at each other talking through screens? Like that wasn't a thing until someone thought it and someone else said that's stupid, right? But they pursued it and here we are. So I like that. I think that's totally exactly it.
So I'm still stuck on what I was talking about a few minutes ago, because my brain is like going, but what about this? And what about this? And the big question that is running through my mind right now is, where does free will fit in? And you're like, well, your duty is to be a warrior. So do your duty and just don't worry about the outcome. Just do your duty. But I'm relating that back to real life. For instance, I have a friend who's miserable because her and her team work like 10 hours a day and they don't get overtime. And I'm like, you got to speak up. You got to say something, or you just she's like, yeah, but everybody's doing it. I'm like, because everybody's afraid to speak up. Somebody has to be the one to speak up, to make that change, to make the impossible possible. Like, like, I'm thinking of Arjuna and I'm thinking, they're like, this is your duty, do your duty. And I'm like, but what if he's the one with the impossible idea? What if he's the one that's like, yeah, no, that's not my duty. You're telling me that's my duty, but I'm an individual with free will. And what I want to do is go sit on a mountaintop and figure out who I am in relation to my soul and God. You know, I just find it interesting that so often in this book, there seems to be these like black and white moments of like, this is who you are, Arjuna, go be this. But then is there room for him? But at the same time, it's like, but also take time to figure out who you are. Like, it's a little confusing. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And chapter 3 is, I wrote this down as like a little summary for myself. Chapter 3 is where Krishna says that you have to follow your own dharma, and trying to follow someone else's is what leads to the anxiety and the fear and all of that. But I do get what you're saying is like, well, why does he have to be a warrior? Like, who said that? And I don't know, from what I'm understanding of like past meetings, and I can't remember who explained it, but from what I'm understanding, I don't know, maybe Seema can answer this for me, but didn't Arjuna and his family, like, they all learned all of these, you know, tactics or whatever? Arjuna's what, an archer, right? So like they went to school. I'm gonna call it school. I know that's not necessarily what it is, but I thought that that was kind of where it was determined that that was his path. Like, his path is.
It was. I think it was
Yeah.
Seshu was talking about the history of
Yeah.
how he became that. But my point is like, in this day and age, with all of us sitting here right now, our families and our society could have conditioned us to be whoever it is that we are. And at what point do you stop and say, but where do I, now that I'm aware of all this, am I free to break away? Am I free to go, thank you for the suggestion, but this is my life? You know, Seema, go ahead.
So if you, and I could be wrong about this, right? But like, and it talks a little bit about some, or I think one of them mentioned the other day in one of the other sessions, right? Is that, again, and it's hard, right? If you didn't grow up with this and you don't believe this, right? But if you believe in reincarnation, right? Then you are actually, when you die, when this body dies and the Atma goes back to the, you know, Brahma, if you want to call it, okay, if you want to say that, then you actually have a say in where you go next, right? So Arjun said, as the Atma, Arjun, I want to go here, and this is what I'm gonna, and this is what I want to accomplish in that life. Okay. And so Krishna, in the moment, being God, right? Being Brahma, ultimately, right? It's just another name. Hinduism has 1,000 gods. They are all representatives of one ultimate God, which is Brahma, right? So if Krishna in the moment says to Arjun, this is your duty, it's because he knows that, right? He's saying it with the all-knowing omniscience that you chose this. This is your duty in this life. And so when we talk about having free will, I think in that moment, when a person chooses to do what they ultimately feel to be the truth for them, right? Again, their dharma, their truth, right? Maybe your friend is not meant to be in this position. She's not supposed to be working there. She's supposed to step up and say, you know, and then she's going to get fired and then she's going to find her real calling. Like, who knows, right? Like, whatever that looks like. But so there is free will. What happens is, in the moment, because Arjun is attached to his family on the other side, he's having doubts and he's saying, I can't do this. I can't kill them. So that's representing, because this is all, I mean, again, in my mind, this is all what's the word I'm looking for? Like a symbolism of, right? Like what's, you guys were saying it and I can't think of the word.
Metaphor.
Yeah, a metaphor, right? So when he's having those doubts, that's like us having like, society told me to be a doctor. Society told me to do this. My parents told me to do that. My best friend said, or people will think this is crazy if. All that doubt, right? The doubt that Arjun's having right now is what has to be removed, right? Meditate on the moment. What is it that you truly in here need to do? And that's what Krishna is in my mind saying to him, is that you stepped into this, you chose this long ago before you were born to be in this position, because it's all foreseen. Now you're letting this attachment to your family take over. And that's where you have to detach from the outcome and serve what your purpose was in this moment. It's a lot.
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, so Shauna, I was just kind of connecting what Seema just said to back to your question of, but what does it mean for me? You know, like what does it mean in our life? And while I was just listening to Seema, is what I think is like, one, for us in our life, I think it comes down to a lot of self-reflection. And like that's kind of what Krishna is teaching Arjuna is, you know, master your mind, know yourself, your true self. So in, you know, put it in our aspect in our world is like Seema was saying, like if you end up a doctor because your mom and your dad wanted you to be, and then you wake up one day and decide, I didn't want this, like I got wrapped up in what someone else wanted. Well, then the thought that I had with what Seema just said is, okay, you realize that now. What do you need to learn from that experience of being in the wrong place? And now, how do you take that and move to the place that you want to go? You know, like even if you end up in the wrong place, you learned something and you're going to take it to where your true purpose, your true self wants to be. That's what I was
I actually think it's really cool that you brought that into the loop, because I wanted to respond to Seema, but I also wanted you to get in there. So thank you, Seema, for what you said. My brain was like, okay, if I'm Arjuna and I am a warrior and I'm supposed to kill, I'm either going to kill my family on this side, or I'm going to let my family on this side continue to live in a way that they don't deserve, right? Because that's the whole battle, is that they should be in leadership and they're not, and they're treated like they're less than. And now he's like, I'm going to fight for the justice of this family. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to kill this family. And in my brain, I'm like, if I were Arjuna, how could I do that if I wasn't attached to an outcome? That like is a total like until you just brought up, well, if you detach from the outcome, and maybe this is weird, but maybe your new outcome is just, what am I going to learn in all of this, regardless of the outcome? Like really the goal is, I'm going to learn whatever it is I'm going to learn. Hani, go ahead.
I was just thinking to just kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Katie, that obviously has everything to do with this whole big topic, but the whole phrase, or like, you know, reference to when one may realize they're in the wrong position, and then they, in that realization, they right their position, better aligning themselves with the purpose and placement that serves them best. And my connection to that is that I truly believe that never are we in the wrong place, because each placement that we're in further advances our awareness and therefore our commitment or our stick-to-itiveness, our level of grit. It advances us to like sinking our claws into it with a lot more depth of what we really want. So if per se we're in the quote unquote wrong place and doing the wrong thing that's not serving us best, really that's not wrong and it's not bad. It's right where we needed to be in an effort to serve our learning experience, so that we can understand. It's kind of like the yin and yang. Like, how are we supposed to know bitter if we don't know sweet, or sweet if we don't know bitter? How are we supposed to know what really is right? How do we know what shoe really fits if we haven't worn, or what's most comfortable if we haven't worn the most uncomfortable shoe? In reference to better align us with what is comfort. And so I think that never is there a moment where we're doing it wrong or positioning ourselves in the wrong place. It's about, again, staying present and aware in that moment, whatever that moment is, whatever that placement is, so that we can best learn about ourselves more, but also learn in such a way that it expands us and enhances the essence of who we are and our placement, so that we can have a better compass and a better connection to the most optimal place for growth. And in connection to Shauna, to that whole detachment or attachment to results and goal, I think that I think there's just such a cool calmness that comes with that release to have to know or to have to arrive. And in that calm, there is this ability to embrace that all is well, and that whatever there is in that destination or whatever, that it doesn't matter, that the curiosity and the awe and the wonderment of the moment is much more likely to teach and to enhance us as a human than if we were to instead sit with anxiety and worry, taking ourselves forward to a place that we don't even know what that looks like, but we're projecting that we think we know with this control that we think we have to have, and therefore completely blinding us from what's sitting in right in front of us and all around us. So I think it's not about like not worrying or not being aware of a destination or a commitment to an end goal, not being unaware of that, but keeping that kind of on a a pedestal or like somewhere where we can see it as a visual, yet not having that absolute need to have a control over that line that that's getting us to that place, instead of being aware that we might go like this instead, even though we have no idea what this is going to look like because we're just in the moment.
Yeah. I think that's just like another way to say the same thing, of just not attaching to the end goal, right? Seema, I feel like you're ready to pounce on this one.
Am I pouncing on everything? It's so funny.
No. I just could feel that like you wanted to respond to Hani, so I wanted you to
There's wisdom coming.
No, I know that's not the case. I actually 100% agree with what Hani said, is that it is exactly that when we went off the path, or we were maybe in the wrong, quote unquote, wrong place, that exactly, right? You're there for a reason. There was something that you had to do or accomplish in that moment that was going to further you when you found the right place. I 100% believe that. And I think in the second part of kind of what you were just talking about, just remind me again now, because yeah, it's like sometimes the thoughts are going faster than the, you know, in the second part of what you said. Just say it again in like one sentence, honey.
Is that about like keeping yourself aware of like your end goal, but yet ever open to how you're going to get there? Is that the part you're talking about?
No, and then you said something else. No, I see. I lost my train of thought, but I think, and there was even a thought previous to that I'm now like, it's so crazy, right? Like we're just thinking about so many things, and I like want to like rewind, but it's okay. I was gonna say, and this is not actually in response to Honey, but there was something, but I've forgotten. Was that, and this is again a little bit more of like the story, in understanding the story, right? So, and it's hard when you don't understand the story behind all of this, right? Or you don't know the whole story, is when Shauna was saying that, like, okay, how is Arjun supposed to be detached from the outcome when he's got family on one side dying, and then his side, right, his side of the war is that they're kind of getting what was owed to them. And the ultimate battle is, that was part of it, right? That they were supposed to have the kingdom. His brother was supposed to be king ultimately. But the reason for it is because that the war occurs is because the current king or prince who's about to become king, his cousin, is all the things that are bad: lust, greed, pride, blah, blah, all that. Okay. And so it's a fight of good over bad. And what happens in the story is that cousin and his uncle actually violate the wife of Arjun and his 4 brothers. So these 5 brothers have one wife. Don't ask me why, or I mean, it's all just like, okay, for whatever reason.
I'm in. I'm signing up.
But they violate her, and that it's all of these things that start going wrong with him as prince king to be, that they're fighting for, is that if he takes over, society and the world is all going to head in this direction of evil, bad, greed, lust, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And so it's not that he's fighting just for the riches of the kingdom, right? It's the riches of the kingdom are in my mind the good things, right?
Justice.
Passion, justice, so I think that's it's hard, because at some points you're analyzing what he's saying without the full story, right? And then we're trying to take it apart piece by piece. And you said that it seems really simple what they're saying. Like, I'm finding, like, I'm breezing through this book and it's super easy to understand, because it can be that simple. And it can also be very complicated. And I think what Hani was saying is that sometimes in letting go and just allowing it to be the way it is, there's a simplicity and a calmness and an ease about that. And I was thinking about it when I was listening to your guys' call from last week, yesterday, is that have you guys all seen the movie Yes Day?
Mhm.
So Yes Day is like it's like on Netflix, and all these 2 kids get a yes day. So their parents can't say no to them about anything. Okay. But there's these ground rules. Like, you can only spend so much. You can't kill anybody. I mean, whatever, like standard fun movie, super fun. But I did this with the kids one day, and there was such an ease and calm. You think it's going to be like this super crazy chaotic day, which in the movie it is. But in reality, it was such an easy day because I had no expectations, right? I wasn't attached to the outcome. It was easy for me to sit back and just say, okay. I was like, can every day be a yes day? Because this was far easier than me having to say, get ready for school. What's your grades? Did you do your homework? Did you eat your broccoli? Like, I was just like, yeah, great. You want to eat ice cream? Sure. Do you want to have dessert first? Absolutely. Like, all of that attachment to all of these ideas that I have went right out the window. And I was like, this is so much easier.
Yeah, because you detached from all of your own conditioning.
Correct.
I think that the statement that it can be simple is very true. And I think for all of us living in this earthly realm, you know, each of us gets to decide what we're going to attach that to, but it just seems a lot more difficult to put into action. Like, I'm notice in my own world, I'm doing really good with detaching from stress and chaos and this and that. And I have this pretty steady, peaceful, you know, state of being. But then let's just drop some big subjects here. We bring in like what's happening in Israel right now. And suddenly detaching doesn't seem so simple, right? When you're dealing with people who are dealing with situations that are beyond our understanding of pain and injustice and violation and all these things. Yeah, in our everyday lives, like, yeah, I think it's easy in some ways for us who've been practicing, right? We're focused on detaching, we're focused on meditating, we're focused on the goals that we want. And if one of our goals is enlightenment, then it's easy for us to be like, oh, I'm not being mindful right now. Okay, I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to be present. It's easy when it's easy, but what about when it's not easy? And I just want to go back to the good versus evil. I'm having a little more clarity on the subject right now of like the one side of the family was violated and the other side of the family was doing the violating, and he's supposed to bring justice, although no attachment to the outcome. But if he had no attachment to the outcome, what is the point of the war? If he doesn't care, if it's okay that they're being violated because they're all learning, they're all exactly where they're supposed to be because they have to, you know, they're going to learn. Like, we know, every single person here right now has been through it. We have gone through the trenches of life and we have come out better versions of ourselves because of it. I just find it interesting that all in this topic with all of these contradictions, Krishna's still going, this is who you are and this is what you're supposed to do, and I'm just waiting for you to do it. And it just seems a little confusing to me. We're probably going to wrap it up shortly, but I just want to read this one little excerpt to you all. Chapter 6, what do you call it? Number 32. We're supposed to detach, right? From joys, from pain and pleasure, right? Joy and sorrow, as far as what I'm understanding. So to be as close to Brahman as possible. And then it says, when a person responds to the joys and sorrows of others as if they were his own, he has attained the highest state of spiritual union. What? I thought we were supposed to be detaching from all of that. I am so confused. This might as well be the Bible. It's like the Indian version of the Bible. Just kidding.
It is the Indian version of the Bible.
It's like, it's, you know, and I love all of them. I love all of it because it's like a buffet of wisdom and I pick and choose what feels right for me. But it's just, again, with the contradictions, it's like, wait, what? I thought our highest level of reaching Brahman was when we detached from the pain and pleasure, whether it was ours or somebody else's. And now it's saying, no, when I respond to your joys and your sorrows as if they were my own. I mean, if I were doing that right now, based on what's going on in Israel, I couldn't have this meeting. If I were attaching to that as if it were my own, I don't know that I could be at peace. you know, like it's easy for us to talk about things that we're not like in, but how do we apply these ideas when we're in it, when we're in the trenches? Because it's really easy. We're all, look at all of us, we're all peaceful and cozy, look at, we're all so cute, this is all easy. What about when it's not easy? Then what? Anybody?
I mean, I have lots of ideas, but I don't want to be the one who's saying stuff.
You might as well, because nobody else's hand is up. Go, girl.
I mean, I don't know. And this is why I really started off the call by saying that I really enjoyed listening to the first 2 sessions without me being able to interject and say something, because I think that having grown up with these thoughts and ideas, I'm very like, I feel like this is the way, right? Like, and it's not a blind faith, because when I went to Sunday school, we learned about the Bible, and we learned about Buddhism, and we learned about Judaism and Zoroastrianism, and we learned about the major religions and Muslim. And so like I have these ideas, but then I feel like, wow, like, am I just stuck in my own ideas, right? But if I was to answer your question, it would be something like this. It would say, just like Jay says that we must find, like when we're talking about our niche, right? Who are the people that resonate to you, right? That you feel compassion for, the people that you want to help. What does your client look like, right? That is showing empathy towards a subset of people that resonates with you, right? So for me, it's women over the age of 40 who lack confidence. Okay, whatever. So, right, you've defined your...
So every woman on earth, is that what I'm hearing? I'm just kidding.
God, I hope not. My worst.
You're gonna be busy.
It's all of us in in different moments, right? But I think when Krishna says that, right, when you feel someone else's sorrow or joy as your own, he's referring to that, right? We're not here, and you're not detached, meaning you don't have feelings and you don't have empathy, right? If we detach and we don't have, that's not, it's in the sense that we detach from the things that don't serve us, right? The things that we've allowed to get in our way, like ourselves, right? Like that whole idea of what is it? But when you're doing your duty, or you're living in your dharma, or you're serving your purpose, when you are the warrior who's meant to be the warrior, then you have a job to do. And in the doing of that job, you are releasing yourself from whatever karma you accumulated in a previous life, right? So does everyone understand really what karma means? Yeah, okay. So then if you're doing your duty, you're releasing, right? So in the job that Arjun does, he is removing some karma from a previous life that needs to be done for him to continue to attain salvation or become one with Brahma again, right? If that kind of makes sense. And in the suffering of others that we see, right? So, oh my God, my thing's gonna die and I don't have a charger. Okay, hang on, I'm talking and walking. In the suffering that we see of others, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not there yet either. Okay, if I had to detach myself and my child was dying, I'm not that, I don't understand it either. I don't know how do you do that? I have no idea, right? But from a standpoint of Hinduism, it would stand to say something like, when you see the suffering of children, it is because they are near the end of their cycle of birth and death. And so it happens to them young because they're done. They don't need to go through anymore. It is what allows them to be released at an early age from this hell, if you were, right? Like in Hinduism, what right now, what we're living, this coziness of my house and the couch and our cuteness is our hell, okay? Heaven is once you go back to being with Brahma. So in a very, like, I don't know, kind of way, it explains sometimes the suffering that we see in the world and how to, I won't say justify, because I don't think that's the word, but it kind of helps to explain it, I guess, a little bit, like that they're in a different part of their birth and death cycles, and it's just all part of it. So I don't know, does that kind of answer, like?
I feel suddenly very relieved for all the suffering children in the world. Like, thank God, I had no idea they were on their way home. Thank God.
I mean, that is actually what
that theory. I'm
Yeah.
on board. I'm on board.
Yeah, and it does give you, right? It does. It gives you a little bit of sense of peace in knowing that, or they've learned what it is that they were supposed to learn, and that life now is done. And maybe they're going to come back, but it's going to be in something so much more beautiful.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. Go ahead, Jessica.
What's coming to me as I heard you speaking, Sima, is just the attachment coming from the sense of thinking of all the suffering that's taking place and attaching to maybe like in our inability to do something, maybe because financially or physically we're not within that location, then it blocks us from doing our dharma, right? Our purpose, which could very much be in a different way than us thinking of, oh, I have to help physically or I have to help financially, etc. There could be so many different ways. So like us like releasing that attachment of how we're supposed to serve is in a sense allowing us like more freedom and creativity to really address some of that suffering that we are seeing, and then also the feeling aspect of the suffering. There was something that was said around if we've never been in that situation or experienced that feeling before, then how do we know? I guess kind of what I heard is like, how can we show compassion or empathy for that person if we've never been like in that situation before? And kind of what's coming to my mind is we're needing to get out of our way in the sense of the feeling of that experience, right? Keeping us from recognizing like the sadness, the frustration or happiness or whatever that person might be experiencing. Because at the end of the day, we really want to be able to, from what I'm hearing from this conversation, is be able to look at what does that overall compass and growth, what is that pointing us towards, and what are we trying to release? So that's what's coming through to me right now. I don't know if that's resonating with anyone else, but
Thank you, Jess. Go ahead, Hani.
yeah.
I think the central point, for whatever reason, that I keep on connecting to or threading all of this together with is that isn't it true we're innately as humans wired with this absolute need to know why? How come? Well, why? How come? Why? I don't get it. That's not fair. Why? And the ability to maintain trust and connection to a bigger picture than the why is, I think, where we are set free to better be directed in our purpose. So, why are children suffering? Why are all these terrible things happening in Israel? It's not fair. It's unjust. It's putting me in such a helpless position and causing me to feel like such a glutton living in this pansy bubble. All the while, my brothers and sisters across the globe or whatever are being dealt the very, very short stick in life or whatever. And yet that's coming from a filter inside of me that is lacking so much perspective and ability to see the whole broad picture. And so I think instead of becoming so fixated on the why, releasing the need to know why, and instead positioning self in such a way that there's curiosity and wonderment about what can I do and how can this situation and this knowing serve me and those around me? How can I be an instrument best serving myself and those in my path? Because when we're fixated, I think, on an absolute need to know, we are completely eliminating our ability to be and to act. And so it's not that we're not empathetic and that we're not internally suffering and feeling the pain of knowing what we know, but we're not fixated in kind of like a bitter place or a confused place, so much so that we are basically barricading ourselves from the big picture.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I 100% am a believer in focus your energy on things that you actually have control over. And I wonder if in that one little segment that I read that said, when you feel their joy and their sorrow as if it were your own, then you have reached the highest level of spirituality or whatever. I wonder if, okay, here I am. I have studied the Gita. I am now practicing everything it's teaching me. I am detaching like a pro. Therefore, your joys and your sorrows, I'm able to process them as if they were my own, which means I'm detaching from them. So I'm able to witness it as if it were my own, and I'm not having to attach to the outcome of it or needing it to be something. And I think the question of why has been around for so long. I think that's why the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding. And I got a message once upon a time, I got a message once upon a time, because I get messages that said, you don't have to understand. You just need to know that this is real. And I'm not going to get into the story of it, but I think the why is like an outdated question. I think the new question is how. How do we move forward? Like, we don't need to understand why it's happening. We just need to understand how to move forward through it. And I think the Gita is giving us a lot of great ideas of how to move through this, hell on earth. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a yin and yang. I think sometimes earth feels like a slice of heaven, and sometimes it feels like a big pot full of hell. So I think there's both going on. Does anybody else want to chip in before we wrap up the meeting? We're 1:43. That's my God number. Yay. We're moving on to 2 hours here. I got a parent conference that I got to leave for in 15 minutes. So anybody else want to chime in before we pick up next week? Going once, going twice. Well, I love you girls. Thank you. I was really like, my ass was dragging to get to this meeting today. I was like, oh God, like, as the last time I'm doing a book meeting, I have to motivate, I have to go act like I'm in a people person mood. But you, all your energy and all of this that you brought to me, just I'm back, ladies.
Hey, what about next week? Because I loved that you left it last week with like, okay, let's leave it on this thread so you guys can just chew on this for the week and we'll reconvene in a week. So is there a place marker of inspiration or kind of connection that might serve us well to kind of
Think about,
collectively have like a mindset or kind of a focus on
yeah,
a little
I would love for all of us to think about meditation, because that's where my brain is at since I just read chapter 6. It talks about meditation being a way to focus our mind. And it didn't necessarily, I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but I didn't understand that it was saying to focus on anything in particular. It just was saying focus your mind. A lot of people say that there's like not a lot of rules to meditation, but it did specifically say that being upright with your spine aligned so that it can activate the kundalini, which is the serpent energy that brings us to enlightenment. So I'm really taking that all in, and I'm thinking a lot about what that means to me and how important I think it is. And this is Krishna telling Arjuna, like, meditate, and this is how you do it. So I'd be curious to hear everybody's opinions on that. And I don't know if you already do, or if you want to practice this week and see if anything came to you through that. Do you guys like leaving it there?
Go back and look at, you don't have to do it right now, but go back and look at chapter 6 and the verses like 23 through 36, where he's talking about meditation. And he says the practice of meditation frees one from all affliction. It's the path of the yoga. But he goes on, renouncing wholeheartedly all selfish desires and expectations, use your will to control the senses. Little by little, through patience and repeated effort, the mind will become stilled within itself. So don't be thinking about what you want, what you need. You're just kind of letting it all go and just letting it resonate with you, right?
That is like the opposite of how I meditate. So this is
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
I'm always super focused
Page
on
142 in this book.
okay.
I
Deal.
think meditation, I think for me, really quick, meditation sets me in a position of feeling release. Like, it gives me freedom because it doesn't allow for a fixation on an absolute. It just resets the tone and reminds me every day that all is well and all is as it should be. And the focus of gratitude, the focus of what is, the focus of abundance, all that kind of stuff, like letting go a need or a sense of control. So yeah, meditation for me is like, it's very powerful, and it like absolutely sets the tone for the day in a way that otherwise the day would take me and set the tone for.
Do you
That's kind of
feel
what Jay says, right? He says the same thing. He starts off his day with his meditation to set his mindset and to get his day in order. On a few of the meditations that I have followed, like Jay on Calm, and a couple of these other ones that I've just kind of learned how to start meditating with, I always like when they remind me after moments of silence, they say, whatever thoughts are coming into your mind, just acknowledge them and just push them on, and just think of them as floating clouds going across the sky. You don't have to worry about them right now. You don't have to think about that right now. Just let it go. It's there, but let it go. And so I find that very helpful to have somebody remind me, just let it go. Just let it go.
interesting?
So I'm still learning my meditation methods, but I just doing it myself. I'm thinking, okay, why am I not doing this? Why am I going to do this? So what am I going to do about that? And my brain goes in that direction. But if I have a little direction to just kind of calm me and remind me where I'm supposed to be headed, it's helpful. Maybe I'll get past that one of these days.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a thought of something that you want all of us to be thinking about on this week apart? I feel like Katie or Seema, like you have to have something, one of you.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of things. I think there's so many things, right? Think uh I think meditation is a really good place to
Mhm.
I think that's a great. I think there's a lot of misconception, I think, in meditation. And I think there's a lot of things out there that may or may not be meditation that say they're meditation. So I think there's I think that just starting from a place of quiet and just being able to quiet your mind,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's hard. It's so hard. I don't presume to say that I can do it. Like 99% of the time I cannot. So it's it's a practice, right? But I think that's the idea in my mind, is that when you can quiet your mind, then you hear what your soul is trying to tell you.
Now I'm just wondering who that other voice has been all this time.
Yeah, it's not crazy Shauna and her 8 lives. It's
Only one of them. There's only one crazy Shauna up there. The rest of them have other names. Okay. So Katie, you had a whole list of questions about past chapters. Should we end with one of your questions? Like nobody answer it. We just take it, write down your notes if you think you're not going to remember, and then we'll start there next week.
Sure. So actually, I have one that I think can go along with meditation. It's from chapter 4, so I'll give you guys, for those that have our book, it's page 118, and it's verses 18 through 21. And the question that I wrote down is, what do you think it means to have action in inaction and inaction during action? And I think that can kind of tie into what is meditation and yada yada. So that would be interesting.
I love that. Everybody's don't say anything. Just
what were the pages and the verses again? Just say it one more time. 118, page 118.
Yep. Page 118, verses 18 through 21.
Okay.
Yep.
I love that. That is awesome. I can't wait to talk about that, you guys. I love you girls. And if there's any guys watching out there, I love you too.
Hey, Shauna, really quick. I'm not going to respond to anything that Katie just said. I had a thought about leaving this meeting with the focus on meditation and now the action versus inaction as a prelude to prepare for next week. I just wondered if you guys would think it might be cool, since we are going to be talking about meditation next week, if we start out and open our discussion next week with a group meditation.
That actually ran through my mind when we were all just talking about it. I was like, do we start or end? And then I was like, I I didn't say it. I was like, I don't even think I could actually do it. Like, there's no way. I'll do it with you girls. I will. I'm down. But there's no way like my mind is going to actually be clear in that moment. Not with all of you here. I'm going to be thinking about all of you. Like, but I'm willing to practice. I'm willing to try. Should we start that way or do we end that way?
I could guide it I'm not in pro, but I'm willing. If you guys are willing, I could do a guided meditation with the start of it. Just to
Why not?
Set the meeting.
So in the beginning, you like the idea of before we start?
I kind of think so, because then it kind of aligns our energy, and it just kind of like gathers us and composes
I'm
us.
down. I'm down. I'm down. Do we record the meditation part so that people watching can do it with us?
Yeah.
Because they can fast forward if they don't want to, right?
Yeah.
Only because we're all going to be like this for 10 minutes.
Well, yeah, Shauna, like like with what you were saying of like, I'm never going to be able to focus with you guys here. Like we could always turn off our cameras and stuff,
Yeah.
maybe like, and like set, you know, Honey can set a timer, whatever, she's going to lead the meditation. And even if she didn't want to, we could find a meditation to play, you know,
Yeah.
You know
like,
what? I like the
yeah.
idea of Hani leading because she
Yeah.
brought it out. Also, I have practiced meditating at the gym where there's like a million people because I have my own reasons for it. And I have done it. So maybe this is showing up for me because the universe is like, hey, remember you were practicing that? Get back on it. So let's do it, people. Let's do it. Okay, Hani, guided meditation at the beginning of our session next week.
Okay.
Are we doing like 10 minutes or what are we doing?
I mean, it wouldn't be more than that, probably even less than 10, but just, it doesn't have, it's not about length or like quantity of time, it's just about the quality of that experience at that moment. So simple and easy and still profound. It's
I'll-
doable.
I'll let you decide how long we do it. Also, I'm pretty sure that Rose, I loved your analogy of like the clouds floating by. Do you think that that it's like an accident that my phone case cover has a whole bunch of clouds floating by?
Now you look at those clouds in a different way.
I do. I'm like, okay, that was a sign from God. Okay. I'm
Love it.
gonna practice with you girls. All right. I'll see you all next week. Same time, same place.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye, Ali. Bye, Jess.